Welcome back to the Fuzed Life Podcast. Today's guest is Mitch Van Beek. He is the founder of MovePainFree. Mitch is I can't remember what we settled on, movement or sports scientist, but we'll let Mitch talk about that here in a second. If you didn't see our first video together, Mitch joined me on my very first podcast, and now he's here on my 10th podcast. So, Mitch, welcome. How's it going?
Going really well. Thanks for having me on again. And yeah, it's been, I don't know how long since that first time we hopped on to chat, but definitely excited to give some updates and talk about some new stuff that we both learned. And yeah, I'm excited, man.
Well, good. Can you expand a little bit on the introduction there? Exactly what you do and what your credentials are?
Yeah, so I have a degree in exercise science. Um, yeah, I like to talk about movement science, but I also coach sports and I like to dive into the very technical biomechanical aspects of those things. So Um, yeah, we could call me any type of scientist that you want, I suppose. I'm a movement scientist, sports scientist, yeah, all that stuff. But yeah, degree is exercise science by itself.
Okay. And, I'm glad to have you back on. And I wanted to talk about some things you got going on with your business because it looks like you've been busy. You've revamped the entire business. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, the last time we talked, we were doing a lot of one-on-one coaching with a focus on just movement patterns because you and I, we really dove into the fact that how we moved will determine how we feel. And the way we were going about that was a lot of body weight work to just get tons and tons of reps to eventually change how we're walking, how we're running, how we're jumping through space. And we still do a lot of that type of stuff to really hone in movement patterns toward how our body naturally moves. But we actually found out that if you aren't building strength in these new patterns, it's not going to be something that you use when you need to be strong under high force or in like an intense situation. So the a lot of the revamping that we did was figuring out how we can load these positions, how we can load a movement pattern rather than just a lifting pattern. And now we do a whole lot more of resistance training. So not just body weight, we're loading the body. But another thing that we started to look at was the full picture because I heard a quote the other day where if you think it's just exercise, you're wrong. If you think it's just diet, you're wrong. If you think it's just lifestyle, you're wrong. And that hit home with me because obviously we do need to look at the entire picture from our training and movement to our nutrition and hygiene to even the things we're putting on our feet, the things that we're wearing, our clothing. All these things actually feed into having a high stress or a low stress environment for our body to be in, to heal in, or to not heal in. So we've definitely dove into um, just the health, nutrition, hygiene, footwear, clothing side of things too, just teaching people how they can change those things to foster in a more low stress environment for their body as well.
Okay, that's interesting. Let's break that down a little bit.
Yeah.
So do you still do the one-on-one programs, whether it be somebody, for example, my subscribers are going to have sciatica, limited range of movement, old, young. I mean, can you personalize a program for all kinds of different people?
Yeah, absolutely. And we still do one-on-one training, but we also offer more of a community aspect too. So we have kind of a membership and one-on-one training, but everything runs together and is run in a similar way. But exactly what you just said, we base everything off of movement assessment. So you come in, we're going to look at how you're standing, how you're walking, how you're running. And then we have the exercises, we have the expertise to actually change how you're moving so that energy isn't leaking from your walk or your run into your joints and causing pain or pinching off those nerves that are causing things like sciatica and whatnot. So yeah, we still do one-on-one stuff, which is super effective, but we also offer the option to let people just learn on their own and basically become their own coach, because that's really where I want people to be at anyway. You shouldn't need me. You should be able to coach yourself through this stuff at some point. Um, and that's kind of where we've moved toward.
Okay. Were you kind of hitting a stopping point or maybe like a frustration point with certain clients? Is that why you maybe jumped into the diet a little bit? Because is that how you figured out there was multiple aspects like, hey, we're doing everything that I think I'm supposed to be doing with this person, but maybe they're just not eating right, or maybe there's something going on behind the scenes with them.
Yeah, and I would say yes. And not that I was frustrated with like a specific client,
Sure.
but I was seeing things even in myself, in Coach Joe, the other guy I work with, and then our clients as well, where we weren't quite getting all the results we wanted. We were getting fine results, people were getting out of pain, but we weren't getting all the results we wanted. So I have no pride. I'm fairly humble, I guess. I have no problem with revamping, changing things if that's going to help more people. So yeah, we had to dive into the diet side of things. Do people have enough energy to actually put the time in to do this stuff? Is their body in a really high stress state where their nervous system isn't even worried about adapting to new movement patterns? It's worried about uh, getting enough energy for their brain to
Hmm.
function. Are they getting enough of the trace elements, or the metals that we need, like magnesium? So it really comes down to that side of things too, and that's from your diet, from your supplements. And then it's not only the things that we're adding, it's also some things that we can take out of our diet. And I really like to talk about everything is really a game of subtraction. You don't really have to add much. You just have to get rid of a few negative inputs, and that will amplify the positives that you already have. Because most people do have positive inputs already. The negatives just sometimes outweigh them.
Sure. And so are you able to personalize these diet programs as well for, let's say, a client, maybe weight loss is the best thing for them. Another one is energy. Another one, maybe an inflammation type diet. Is that something you're looking at as well?
Yeah, so I'm not a dietitian, so I don't give medical advice on diet. All I do is give information on what you may need. And like I said this last time I was on too, I'm not a doctor, so I can't give medical advice, but I can tell people what has worked for others. And that's really where I stay. And so we don't build diet plans per se, but we will tell you what has worked for other people who were dealing with a similar issue to you. And diet to me is pretty simple compared to like how you're exercising, just in the fact that you need XYZ, you you might be consuming ABC that are hurting you. It's pretty simple where you get this, you take this out, and then stuff starts to come together and you'll start to feel better. But of course, there's people in the industry that muddy the waters, and try to make it as complicated as possible. Like you need all these supplements every day, otherwise you're not going to feel good. But I don't adhere to many supplements being used. I would rather get it out of just a normal diet, and then maybe the things that are hard to get in your normal diet in the modern world, we can start to supplement those. One being magnesium, because usually we would get that from like our fruits and vegetables, but the soil is depleted of magnesium now, and the fruits and vegetables don't have as much. So it's not a bad idea to supplement magnesium, just because it's hard to OD on magnesium, and it's involved in like every process in your body. So
Gotcha. So basically what you're saying is let's stick to the most whole foods we possibly can, right? And the supplements, I think it does muddy the water because you get married to a certain company or you're in an affiliate program and you got to push this stuff for it's
yep.
everything all about money. So I see where you're going with that. So let's just try to give people the most sound advice we possibly can, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and like in my membership, I don't have an affiliate link for any company of supplements, so I'm not gonna do that. And I don't think I would ever do that because I don't think that's really the right way to go about your dietary health anyway. You shouldn't need to supplement all these things. I do give links for specific things that I use. I supplement three types of magnesium, um, depending on the situation. And I just keep coming back to magnesium because it's such an easy example to use. But yeah, I'm not the type where I'm an affiliate marketer for X X supplement brand, and I'm now trying to get people to take every type of supplement from them because I don't think that that's needed.
Right. I agree. As we talk about the hygiene aspect, I wanted to talk with you about that because so I use a natural toothpaste. I use like a beef tallow soap and a beef tallow moisturizer. And the reason I do that is because I've had skin issues in the past. Like I'll get a rash on certain things or a certain brand of deodorant I'll use, and then I'll have burns in my armpit. And so, I mean, the stuff that they're putting in these things really impacted my skin. So I'm kind of wondering what kind of stuff, and you don't have to go into specific brands or anything, but what kind of stuff are you advising people to use?
Yeah, and when it comes to hygiene, I I give like a 7 ingredient rule. You should try to keep the things you're putting on your body under 7 ingredients, and you should probably know what they are. If you can't pronounce something that's on like your deodorant label, it's probably not something you want being absorbed through your armpit.
Mhm.
uh, just because your skin is like a super absorbent organ on your body. So anything you put on it is gonna get taken right in, and then you'll you'll feel the effects, or it'll affect your body. So yeah, the 7 ingredient rule is big for me, and I know it's hard sometimes, but I have a deodorant. It's a magnesium based deodorant where it has 4 ingredients and it doesn't let me smell. But it's not like something that's stopping me from sweating, or anything. But yeah, it's really nice because when I was using like high ingredient chemical deodorants, like yeah, it
Mhm.
would cover the smell, but I would stink badly if I didn't keep applying it. Like my workouts, I would smell like cat pee, because my body was like trying to detox all these chemicals, and yeah, it was not good. But and that rule really goes for every hygiene product. Your shampoo, your toothpaste. Toothpaste will be hard, just because it has to have like a certain consistency and it has to froth up, to be able to be spread. So I've used like a coconut oil based toothpaste. I'm using just a non-fluoride toothpaste right now. And we can talk about fluoride a little bit too, just because that's something that's pushed as healthy, but in my opinion, it's not. So it really comes down to just knowing how certain chemicals affect your body, and then avoiding them or adding them in if they are a negative or a positive. And that's the education that I like to give people. Not that I'm saying use this or use that, but I definitely will say some people use this and their teeth are actually being remineralized, because they're not being destroyed and plaque isn't being um, damaged by what's being put on them every day. So
Yeah, when you talk about fluoride, that's one of the reasons that I got, a natural toothpaste and just some of the research. And I don't have any to cite right now, but a lot of things are, the fluoride, I think it was a fertilizer runoff and they didn't know really what to do with it. So, well, let's just dump it in the water. So it's like it's in our water and stuff now too. So it really, I believe it has minimal benefits, but it has a lot of long-term like negative effects. Is that how you understand it as well?
yeah, so fluoride, like you said, it was a phosphate fertilizer byproduct. So people were making fertilizer for like the field, and then yeah, this was just a byproduct. And um, depending on how conspiracy minded you want to get, we we can dive into different levels of this. But Um, it's just dumped into water, and fluoride is a neurotoxin. So it stops your nervous system from functioning optimally. And it's considered safe at low levels, but the thing is that whatever you're putting in your body is going to start to build up. Like sugar is really safe at low levels too, until it's converted into fat for 40 years, and then you are morbidly obese. So fluoride, yeah, 73% of Americans drink fluoridated water. And it's put in toothpaste, it's put in mouthwash, and I mean a lot of and like further down the line, a lot of like our drinks that we buy just in bottles and cans are made with fluoridated water. So it's really hard to consume anything that doesn't have fluoride in it. And yeah, it's fluoride levels in the body or in the water system have been really highly correlated with lower IQ scores for children. So, I mean, if you look at the evidence that's mounting, you can see that it's kind of an issue. So yeah, a big thing with fluoride is to filter your water with a filter that actually takes fluoride out, and just try to stay away from drinking straight from the tap, stay away from things that are made with fluoride water, because it can lead to a lot of issues. I have a big list here. Obviously, neurological problems, so IQ reduction. It's been linked to ADHD and other cognitive issues. It can mess with your reproductive health and
Mhm.
like impact fertility. It can lead to sorry. It can lead to skeletal fluorosis, which causes joint pain and will increase your risk of fractures. It can lead to thyroid dysfunction, which is going to mess with your hormones. Like the list just goes on and on and on. So this is just one example of a chemical that we're given in
Mhm.
just everyday life that is a negative that we should try to take out of our life as much as we can.
Yeah, when you talk about how conspiracy minded you want to be, I think the main conspiracy that people, come up with here, and whether it's true or not, right, is that big pharma, wants to feed you medicine. So let's make everybody sick. So whether it be big pharma or big healthcare, however you want to talk about it, but they want you sick so they can make money, right? I mean, that's how I understand it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have to kind of catch myself with most of these things that I find are harmful and we need to subtract from our lives, but they're pushed as healthy by like the big government agencies. So I have to catch myself from thinking that way with everything, that is, I mean, touted as healthy. Even like the old food pyramid
Hmm.
was was or is insane. Like it's like 13 servings of grains a day, and or 13 servings of carbs and grains, and then protein is like two servings or three servings. Like everything is backwards in our world. And I mean, we can talk about the lifting versus movement side of training as well, because that's the biggest thing that I focus on, obviously. Everything is backwards from a health standpoint, um, as far as what we're being told. So yeah, it's hard to not think into the conspiracy side of things, because if if even one person thought this was a good idea, I'd be surprised in some cases. But there's like a massive amount of people that thought, yeah, let's throw fluoride in the water. Or they did it on purpose, like you said, because they want to get us sick and they want to treat illness, or they want to treat symptoms of illness and then keep selling us stuff. And that's kind of a big part of our economy too. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting conspiracy rabbit hole to dive down.
Yeah, if you get a chance to listen to Jordan Peterson talk about how much of a scam the food pyramid is, I would recommend that you do that. And there's other podcasts I've heard that talk about like the FDA and how they can be bought and paid for by certain companies and lobbyists and that type of stuff. And I'm not endorsing that here, but I'm saying I've heard that, and it's just amazing the things that we allow and we don't regulate, even
Yeah.
after into research when the European Union bans a lot of these things now after they see the research because they know it's harmful to their people. So they start banning things. So it really is a backwards system here. And I'm glad you're to this stuff to try and, bring awareness to people.
Yeah.
I think that's a good transition into like the clothing aspect as well, because when we talk about things being unregulated, and this is another thing that I read about was specifically it was either leggings or yoga pants, and it was a certain brand that they have forever chemicals, and they were like basically concentrated in like in the seam, like the crotch region of the pants, which is a very vulnerable place for absorption for people. And again, it's completely unregulated. People don't know it's there. And it almost seems like it's done on purpose.
Yeah. I I just started diving into clean clothing stuff about a year ago. So everything I'm wearing right now is cotton. And that's where I've been trying to recommend people toward now because yeah, if you're wearing things that are made of polyester or acrylic or spandex, those are all chemicals that are based out on petroleum, like black oil. And if you've ever heard of like an oil spill into a natural ecosystem, it kills things. Like it's not a healthy thing for a natural ecosystem, but a lot of our clothing is made of that, and especially our clothing for working out when our pores are opening to sweat. It's like people are working out for health benefits, but they're wearing like the tight leggings made of straight polyester, and they're just bringing in petroleum into their system. And yeah, they're probably getting a net positive from working out in the moment. But like you said, these are forever chemicals. It's really hard for your body to get rid of them. So they're going to be pumping through your bloodstream. And yeah, what it does is put your body in a really high stress state because your body is getting damage from the workout, which is how working out works. You damage your body and then you heal from it, and then your muscles get bigger, or your cardiovascular system gets more efficient. But then it's also trying to get rid of these unnatural chemicals, and so your body is kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, and you won't heal as efficiently from the exercise. You won't be able to get rid of these microplastics and these chemicals out of your body. So yeah, your workouts literally are less fruitful because you're wearing plastic and you're wearing petroleum-based chemicals in your clothing. So
Yeah, and not only is it less fruitful, like you to jump kind of back on the conspiracy thing, is like it's going to keep you sick. It's going to cause health issues to which starts the cycle, right? Now I got to go to the doctor who's going to give me this pill for this very important problem I have. But what the doctor's not going to tell you is in 5 years, you're going to have another very important problem that needs this other pill caused by the pill I just gave you. So, I mean, so if you want to go down the conspiracy kind of road, I think that's where it's going to lead you.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, so it starts that cycle, and I think it's just amazing that this stuff's not regulated, and that somebody on like social media has to find it out and then put it out there, and then everybody's like, oh my god, why didn't anybody else tell us about this? Why does some guy have to figure this out? And then it's really concerning in some aspect.
yeah, it is. And the more concerning part is that most of this stuff is only not regulated in the United States where we live. Because if you're thinking about like food, the artificial colorings that we use here are banned in Europe. So like red 40 and yellow 6. Like you can't put those in food just across the ocean because they're harmful. But here it's like, yeah, just everything is bright red, everything's yellow, everything's just they're appetizing colors. But yeah, that's another thing to stay away from. And I don't know if European countries are regulating clothing materials yet, but I do know that a lot of Europeans just as like a tradition, more of a heritage thing, wear more cotton, more wool, more linen, more silk. They just wear, and this goes for Asia too, and Africa too. Like just anywhere that isn't the United States, anything that isn't North America, really. We wear so much more plastic. Um, and it's kind of showing because we have the most active medical system. We have the most money-making medical system. And yeah, if you just look into this stuff for a little bit, the dots start to connect and you'll start to look like that, like a crazy guy with like a conspiracy board, but it's not really that crazy if you think about it.
Yeah, and when you talk about these red dyes, like there's research out there that it causes like ADHD in kids and it causes just like kids to act crazy. But every single thing that's marketed for kids is red with this stuff in it on purpose, which I don't know. Like I said, like you said, we can put all this stuff on a board and be like, oh man, maybe we are part of one huge conspiracy, you know?
Yeah. And yeah, so for example, Red 3 has been acknowledged by the FDA to be a thyroid carcinogen in animal testing. So if you if you would just connect the dots here, it's probably also a thyroid carcinogen in people who are also animals. And your thyroid has a ton to do with hormone function. So it's like this huge lineup of issues that are just going to start to cascade. You're going to have hormone issues, going to be infertile, which we have an issue with in this country as well. Um, and it's all these colors are linked to behavioral problems, migraine triggers, ADHD and hyperactivity. And I mean, people are allergic to them too, which I mean, they don't care. They'll sell you an EpiPen. Like they want you allergic to things that they're selling because then you have to buy another thing to save you from it. So yeah, it's it's insane. And it's in everything. Like it's in our cereals, it's in our breakfast foods, it's in candy. It's even in like health foods like flavored dairy products. Like you're drinking strawberry milk. Guess what? There's red 40 and red 3 in that. It's in like Gatorade, which is like peak health. Like
Yeah.
Gatorade, I stay away from Gatorade now because it's colored and I mean, it's not artificially sweetened, I suppose, because corn syrup is from a plant, but like that's not the sweetener that you want. So yeah, and it's even in like our hygiene products too. If you if your kid is using like bubble gum toothpaste, it's pink and it's colored with red 40, which is messing with your kid's hormones. It's messing with your kid's neurological function. Like so everything is just and actually this is a big one. You know the like the pink amoxicillin that you would get if you had an infection?
Yeah.
That's colored with red 40. Like it's so bad and it's such an ingrained thing in our society. Like everything needs to be colored something and flavored something so people will want it. And yeah, it's like one of these moments like you don't even know what to say or do, you know?
Right. And I've talked about this with other people on the podcast too, where when you go to the doctor, those should be the first two questions. Tell me about your exercise and your diet.
Yeah.
Then they should be able from there to be like, okay, remove this because that might be causing this because this research says that. But it seems like it's just we're just going to over medicate people and I don't know that and this is a discussion I've had in the past. You don't know if it's the doctor or if it's the entire program that they're being taught. Somebody presents with this, hit them with this, so it may just be the entire system from the top down is completely flawed. And you and I both know it's hard to revamp an entire system, especially something that big, and it's just never going to get done. So this is what we live with, and we've got to try to find ways on our own to deal with it. And that's basically what you're doing with this program.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I was gonna try to like tie this all back, all this conspiracy theory talk back to, yeah, there are people like me, there are people like you who are out here spreading information about how to use natural things to get the same benefits that are touted from like the medical system or the normal exercise system or even like shoe companies um, that are supposed to keep you safe and healthy, but they have drawbacks that are going to lead to issues that you don't want. So we can get all the benefits of XYZ without all of the negatives that come with them. And that's really that's like the mission statement behind what we do is you can just subtract the negatives, amplify the positives, and then you will start to move pain free again,
Mhm.
which is that's the mission.
That's the name of the company, right? When we talk about footwear, are we talking like, are you talking padding? Are we talking like the wider foot box? Are we talking what are they, the bare feet type shoes? I mean, what are you pushing at your, not that what you're pushing, but what are you diagnosing and finding?
Yeah, so footwear is another one where it's like a systemic issue. We're told to wear super padded shoes with arch support, with an elevated heel to help your foot, which your foot doesn't need help. Your foot is designed to just function by itself. So I understand that we all need shoes. Like I was walking outside when I let my dog out this morning barefoot and it's cold. So I don't want my barefoot on the cold ground. So yeah, I want to wear a shoe. But your shoes should just be something that lets your foot function how it wants to and keeps it safe from pretty much man-made surfaces. That's like the root cause. If we weren't walking on cement or asphalt, we probably wouldn't need any footwear, to be honest. Grass actually feels pretty good to walk on. But when it comes to shoes, the three biggest issues that we see are artificial arch support, high padding. Actually, I'll call it four issues. So arch support, a lot of padding, a narrow toe box. So the shoe like literally pinches your toes together at the end. And then most of these exercise shoes or these health shoes have an elevated heel, which if your heel is elevated, your hips are gonna push forward to just adjust to how your foot is on the ground, and then it changes your posture from the bottom up. So the way to combat that is your shoes should be as low padding as you can tolerate based on like the surface you're on. Um, Obviously, if you're a runner and you're running on a road, you need some padding. Otherwise, you're going to get like bone bruises on your feet. So there are barefoot options that have more padding for running on man-made surfaces. And then your shoes should have a wide toe box. So like I'm wearing zeros right now, and these have no padding. And like this comes up because I was just sitting with my toes kind of moved up, but there's no elevation from the front of your foot to the end of your foot. And then they have a really wide toe box. So your toes can spread out inside the shoe. And um, these are things that you have to adjust to. Your feet are a body part just like any other. They have muscles that you need to strengthen. Um, so I do talk about how to safely transition from normal shoes to barefoot shoes, but that is that's like super low hanging fruit for people to improve joint pain, um, even like from the neck down, and especially foot and ankle health, just allowing the foot to work, allowing the muscles of the foot to actually do what they're designed to do. So yeah, that's kind of my spiel on footwear. And there's a lot of companies out there that are making good footwear. I've been on the podcast with Zero, the maker of the shoes I'm wearing right now. But there's also cheaper options on Amazon. There's a brand called Witten, and I talk about all these different brands and the pros and cons of them. So
Okay. I'm gonna have to check out some of those. I've actually never heard of Zero. I haven't looked into footwear a lot, so this is definitely going to give me something to look into. Um, so for people who are on the fence about, let's say, a movement program, I mean, because if you talk to somebody, let's say an older person, they're going to say, well, this stuff's only been around. I've only heard about it the last couple of years. I haven't heard about it. You know, where were you 10 years ago and why are you going to solve my problems now? So I mean, what do you say to that person?
yeah, I mean, if they told me or if they asked where I was 10 years ago, I would say I was a sophomore in high school. But it really comes down to just advancing the ideas of exercise because we know that loading the body with external weight is a net positive. We know that having strong muscles and coordination in our joints is going to keep us healthier. But where we're at now, is that we can build strength without changing how we're naturally supposed to walk and run and jump and swing and strike and throw. Which that's kind of the biggest mistake, or where the exercise community went wrong in like the 60s, is all this resistance training was based off of bodybuilding, how we can isolate specific muscles, make them grow most efficiently so we can win like an aesthetics competition. And I'm not saying you won't get jacked still. I'm not saying you won't still have big muscles and be able to, I don't know, flex on people, but we can now, because we can look at how people are walking and running in slow motion, we can figure out the exact movement patterns that humans are designed to use,
Mhm.
and then load those positions and build strength in the movement patterns that we're designed for. And you've gone through the body weight side of things, where we're changing how you're moving just by repping it out. But now it's a lot more efficient, because if you are loading those positions, it's a much higher stimulus, or a much higher intensity stimulus for your body. So your nervous system will actually adapt quicker. Um, so yeah, it's I guess to answer the question, if you're on the fence about it, it's all the same principles that you've heard about your whole life. Like, yes, we need to build muscle and strength, but we don't want to build muscle and strength just in the lifting pattern. Because if we think about it, you lift things and pick things up like 1% of the time, and you move 99% of the time. And those are separate patterns. And I think everyone would agree with that. You you use your body differently to pick something up than you do to walk, but we weren't understanding that only training in the lifting pattern will start to cause that lifting pattern to leak over into your walking and your running. So now you're trying to walk and run, you're trying to move in the lifting pattern, and that's just not how the body's designed. And that's where we start to run into the joint issues, and even like soft tissue, hamstring, and hip flexor strains, all these problems that are showing up in people who do work out.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the people who are sedentary, they can't really blame anything, for what they're feeling. Like, yeah, if you're not active, then it's kind of like just start moving more, and then you'll probably feel better. But there are people who are walking 10, 15, 20,000 steps a day. There are people who get in the gym and move weight around every day, or 4 times a week, or 5 times a week, and they're still running into problems because they're not using their body the way it's designed. And like, we don't use the word like moving wrong, but it's
Mhm.
just moving inefficiently. And inefficiency is what breeds a lack of function.
Gotcha. Great explanation. And then I guess kind of along the same lines, what would you say to somebody that doesn't really want to join an online program? Because if you go tell somebody, well, I got my degree online, they're going to scoff at you, right? So, like, who's going to want to join an online program, and how do you break through those barriers of like, uh, we're not meeting face to face?
Yeah, and it's kind of hard in that aspect, because um, in any other business or any other exercise training model, you could just say like, yeah, I can find you a trainer near you that's doing similar stuff. And I've done that a couple of times because I do know people around the country. So yeah, if you do have a question about that, if you're watching this, reach out and we can find you someone possibly. But the thing is, like, no one is really doing things the way that we do them. And I mean, you kind of have an opportunity to be on the leading edge of advancing exercise to where it needs to be. So yeah, it is hard for some people to, especially like an older population, which I understand. You want that face-to-face interaction, but we do meet face-to-face just on a call like this, where we can exchange ideas. And I could stand up and walk you through an exercise right now too. I just can't lay hands on you and kind of manually change your position. But yeah, I do totally understand that. I don't really have a great answer for it, to be honest. It's just something where this is the world we live in now. A lot of things are online. So If you can start to learn from people who are, I don't know, how far are we apart? Like 10, 12, 13 hours. I'm in Iowa, you're in Ohio, or I guess, yeah, you live in Ohio. So yeah, you and we've learned a lot from each other. So it's not something that's impossible, but I do understand that it is a little harder.
Yeah, and I can probably help you out with that too, because calls like this are helpful. And I
Mhm.
know I've been going through the program before, and I'll text you, "Hey, I'm trying this," and you're like, "Well, make sure you focus on this, pull here, push there," So, and that stuff really helped. Make sure your toes are pointed this way. So, yeah, I think you can really break those barriers. It's not going to be the same, but you can definitely get results from it.
Yeah.
And
But and yeah, something I will say is um, like when I train people in person in like my local area and they have a question, like I can text them some cues, but we have to wait till the next session we have to really fix things. So it actually can be a quicker turnaround if you're working with an online coach. And that doesn't just go for me. Like if you texted me and you wanted to get on a call in an hour and go through the exercises and get like a movement assessment done, we could do that in an hour. Whereas if I'm busy with like an in-person schedule and I have 5 people today and 5 people tomorrow, and you're scheduled for 3 days from now, it's probably going to be 3 days
yeah,
before we can actually get the work in that you need. So that is that's a pro of an online coach. And again, this isn't just for me. Like if you have an online dietitian, an online mental health coach, it is a lot quicker turnaround at some points.
okay. Can you kind of give me a rundown of what type of clients you're dealing with, what type of injuries, what type of movement issues, that type
Yeah.
of stuff? Because your stuff really did help me, and I've talked about that numerous times on different platforms, and I want to really get that message out there that what you're doing can help people. So, do you have some success stories you can kind of let us in on?
Yeah. Just to kind of touch on the things that we have worked with, because this is obviously a full system, like a full body system program. We're not gonna like isolate your back if your back is hurting. We need to make sure that your shoulders and your hips and your knees and your ankles are working as well to protect that back and make everything work together. But we worked with since this is kind of like a back pain channel, like we worked with herniated discs, we've worked with a lot of scoliosis, um, post spinal fusion patients, and then just like general back pain where there doesn't seem to be a structural issue, which I mean, the doctor will say that a lot to you, like your back hurts, but we can't find anything wrong. So here's some stretches to do. But just general back pain, there's always going to be a cause, and that's what we can see in movement assessment, and that's why this works for every part of the body. But we've also worked with ACLs, MCLs, meniscus, patellar tendon issues. I mean, hip flexors, hamstrings, sciatica, plantar fasciitis, even chronic ankle sprains and weakness in the ankles. Because, I mean, if anyone's ever rolled their ankle, you know that you're liable to do it again.
Mm.
Um, if nothing changes, because if you just keep moving the way that you sprained your ankle in, it's probably going to start to happen again. That's just pattern recognition. If you don't change anything, it
Yeah.
just starts to come up, and that's what happens with everything. And we've even helped people with like neck pain and headaches just from some postural issues, kind of pinching off nerves and um, having shortened muscles that are causing a lot of stress in certain areas. So and even with you, we helped with some shoulder issues while you were benching, and we weren't even like doing shoulder work specifically, but once you can find a lot of tension around your scapula, you'd be amazed at how well your shoulders and your upper body can react to this type of stuff too.
And to add to that, as I was doing your program, and as I felt like my body was starting to even out, when I would bench press or do push-ups, I could start to tell, hey, one side's weaker than the other. I've been overusing one side. And then, like I talked with you about, I had a little bit of pain, and that pain started moving over time, moving, and then it was gone. So
Yeah.
I attributed that to my body just evening out as
Oh,
as I was working out. And it's probably been off kilter for so long. And I would get the pops and stuff like that all the time. And I don't get it anymore. It seems like things are in place right now, and that's kind of where I want to keep them. So have you had stories like that from other clients?
Yeah. So, um, specifically, we worked with a guy named Steven who he had an ACL injury, an MCL injury, and a meniscus injury. And he went through all of the normal rehab to get everything structurally fine, but then he was dealing with some patellar tendon issues after that. And if you've ever had patellar tendon or kneecap pain, it can hamstring you. It can stop you from doing a lot of stuff. And so we just took him in like a normal client. He's a friend of ours now, but we went through, did movement assessment on him, kind of looked at how his hip and his ankle were working together, and then also checked out how his spine was transferring energy from one side of his body to the other. And we found out that his spine was actually stuck in the opposite side of his body. So he's having pain on one side. Spine's stuck over here, not rotating well. And that was causing his hip and his ankle to compensate. And really, his hip and his ankle weren't moving in unison. And there's a joint between them that's only really supposed to move in one dimension. And if the 3D joints above and below aren't moving well together, then that 2D joint, one dimensional joint between them is gonna have some pain. So we did movement assessment, found out the issue, and then from there we can start to give exercises that will actually change how you're using your spine, how you're using your hip and your ankle, so that those issues will go away. And this stuff, like we've said a bunch before, it works in a body weight setting, but it works quicker when you start to load these positions under high force like movement is. So
And when you talk about pain as a hindrance, pain is really a driving factor in who you are sometimes. Like pain and mental health is completely connected, because I know when I got out of pain, like I was almost a completely different person. Like I then wanted to talk to people. I wanted to see people. Like I was in so much pain with my back. Sometimes I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't want to see my family. Like it's all I could think about. So have you had, have you noticed a change in people as they're coming out of pain?
yeah. Yeah, and the biggest thing I hear is a change in confidence. Like you just said, you want to connect with more people. You want to live your life the way you want to. And I mean, I suffered from this when I was dealing with chronic back pain. I was in college and I just literally would lay in bed, and there's college things to be doing, like hanging out with people, and I would avoid that at times because my back hurt, and I knew that I would be withdrawn from any type of social situation. And so the biggest thing is confidence. You feel like you're able to do what you want. And I mean, that's not just like, hey, I can run a 5K now, or now I can bench press more than my body weight. It's like you want to go outside and play with your kids. I got a text from a guy the other day that he's running around the playground with his kids like he's never done before, and he feels that his gait is changed and he feels confident in how he's moving. And then another text I got, this guy was he was out hiking, and he's able to carry his kid when his kid gets tired now. So that's an added bonus. You don't have to listen to your kid whine about how tired he is. You just pick him up and you just carry him now. And he was fully confident that he'd be able to do it the next day too. So that just opens up possibilities with like family time and you hanging out with your friends and whatnot. So yeah, it's confidence is the biggest thing that I get. And yeah, you kind of touched on that as well.
Yeah, and I know you're busy, Mitch. We both got things going on today. I do want to finish up by telling people that if you are in pain, if you're having mobility issues, if anything that we discussed today, if you fit in that category, you need to check Mitch out. And I always say this about anybody I'm talking to. You need to check out a movement program. Whether, you don't like the way Mitch's face looks, whatever, pick somebody else, but you got to find a program to help yourself, because the hard narcotics, the Western medicine, sometimes, I would even say most of the time, is not the answer. So you've heard what Mitch has going on in this business. And please, guys, I'm going to put the links in the description. Just go check it out, see if it's a fit for you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'm mostly on Twitter as far as social media goes. My Instagram is populated with a few posts just for information, but Twitter is where I'm posting religiously every day. And then yeah, we'll put the link to just the community that I run. It's really low cost, like it's not a burden financially at all, just because I understand that some people can't afford to buy into like a really high price one-on-one program. But we do run pretty much a one-on-one program just in a community aspect where we're talking to people every day. And that's where I selfishly get a lot of I don't know, satisfaction out of it because I'm connecting with a lot more people now, helping a lot more people now. So yeah, hopefully you'll check out those links in the description and hopefully we can connect.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining me, Mitch. Pleasure as always, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.